Hi guys, in this video I'm going to be showing you how to ice dye your own clothing so you can get really cute tie-dye designs like the ones I'm showing you here. Starting off with the supplies, you're going to need a bowl, salt, a large tray, a cooling rack, rubber bands, circular paper structures that I'll show you how to make, and powdered dye. Don't forget your choice of clothing item as well. White or any light color works. Here are the specific dye colors I'll be using. They're all RIT all-purpose dye, but any powdered dye should yield similar results. I did use one liquid dye color on my shirts as well. To make the paper circle things, I used 2 pieces of printer paper and taped them together. Since I was making 2 shirts at the same time, I cut the taped paper in half and then taped each one closed to form a circle. If your clothing is bigger, you may need to make the diameter and height of these circles larger by taping more pieces together. These are going to be used to surround your clothing so that ice can be piled on top of your clothes and the paper will keep it from slipping off. As for prep, you'll want to make sure your clothes have been pre-washed. You'll need to fill your bowl with your sink's hottest tap water and then dissolve some salt into the water. I eyeballed the amount of salt I used, so just try to make it proportional to the amount of water in your bowl and the size of your clothing piece. The salt will make the dye set better. Next, soak your clothing pieces in the salt water. You can leave it in the bowl for just a few minutes. Afterwards, wring out your clothes. They'll still be very wet, just not sopping. Now it's time to tie up your shirt into whatever design you'd like. For all the shirts you see in this video, I went with the crumple method. It's super simple, you just wrinkle the clothing into itself. The more wrinkles, the better. I didn't film this part too closely, so if this method is a little confusing still, there's a ton of instructions as to how to do it online. You can do swirls or whatever your favorite tie-dye style is for this part. The ice effect is going to be present no matter what you choose. So now that you have your little rubber banded diaper, you're ready for the next step. Fill your bowl up with a bunch of ice. You're gonna need a lot of ice to pile on top of your clothing, especially if it's big. To set up the tie-dye area, place the rack on the tray and lay your rubber banded clothing on top so you have a little tie-dye barbecue. Now put the paper circles around your clothing so it's surrounded tightly. You might need to tweak the size of the circle by folding it and securing it with a piece of tape like I did. Now, fill the paper structure with ice until the top so that it's piled on the shirt. I forgot to mention you can do this process indoors or outdoors. No matter what, you'll be waiting 24 hours before you can wash it, so the ice will be melted either way. Finally, we can use the powder dye. Just begin by pouring it on top of the ice. You can use any colors and really any placement of the powder. Even one color by itself will end up looking pretty. It's not super imperative to carefully place the powder in specific spots because the results are pretty unpredictable since they depend on the way the ice melts. But that's the best part. For the first 2 shirts, my sister and I kind of went crazy with the colors without much plan. All I would say is try not to overlap your colors too much or else it might melt together and make a muddy color. And if your clothing is larger, you'll need more powder. For the second set of shirts, I went with a purple, blue, and pink look and my sister went with a yellow and purple look. Since the pink we had was liquid, I just used a bottle of it beforehand on the shirt as if I was doing a regular tie-dye. So here we are, just repeating the same process as the first 2 shirts. I would say the second time around we used a bit less powder because a little goes a long way for such a small shirt. We also tried to place the colors in less localized spots and more spread out in different areas on the ice. This is so the shirts didn't end up having zones of each color and was more of a mix of everything everywhere, if that makes sense. So instead of like the first shirts where we had one spot of orange, one spot of green, one spot of blue, and so on, for these shirts we made sure to use the same color for multiple spots on the ice. I tried to map out the placement of our powder in case anyone wanted to try to recreate the looks, but again, it doesn't really matter where you put the powder because the ice could melt differently. These are what the shirts looked like the next day after all the ice had melted and the dye had seeped in. After waiting 24 hours, now you can rinse the shirts out. I did this in the bathtub and used a large bucket so as not to waste a ton of water by keeping the faucet running. Remove the rubber bands from your clothes and just start rinsing all the excess dye with cold water. This process is a little tedious. It took about 15 minutes for each shirt, but really try to rinse it until the water runs almost clear so you can prevent it from staining things in the future. Keep in mind at this point the shirt is super wet and it's still full of dye that's going to be rinsed out in the washing machine with soap, so it's much darker than the final result. Don't be discouraged because the washing machine really makes a difference. Pop your clothes into the washing machine by themselves and run a cold cycle with detergent. And finally, here you have a closer look at the results. I really love how everything turned out, and I hope that your tie-dye pieces turn out even cuter. I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for watching.